What drives you? I'm Kevin Miller, and you're here because, like me, you are driven. But have you found yourself asking, how did I get here? Or is this the best there is for me? So have all high achievers. And as you'll hear in this podcast, once they have gained clarity on all that was driving them, they found the successes they desired efficiently and effectively. So will you. So join me as I go deep with celebrity guests on the ups and downs of their drives and dig into the root issues of what really does drive and motivate all of us. Let's get you fully in the driver's seat of your life. Find me and my other two podcasts at kevinmiller.co, where you can sign up to get a super short weekly list of all my podcast episodes. Welcome back, everyone. As you will have now noticed, I've rebranded the Motive Podcast to What Drives You. And such is the nature of business and branding. And as I fully tried on the positioning of motive, I found the real fit was drive. That's really what was the catalyst for what I'm interested in, what I care about with people, and what I see really matters. And it was actually while I finished the writing of my book that it became clear to me. What Drives You, we think is going to be the title, will be published by McGraw-Hill in February of 2022. This podcast is much the essence of the book, back to episode 1, even though I was calling it Motive at the time. And again, this is what interests me. What does drive people? What are the motives behind what they do and don't do, believe and don't believe? And I really hit at the fact that we are all driven. We like to talk about, so-and-so is driven, so-and-so is not. And I poke at that quite a bit. You can subscribe to the show. Join me as I break down just that, what drives and motivates us. I will continue to have intriguing guests on the show. I've got one I'll be recording with tomorrow. She's an amazing, amazing woman in behavioral psychology, and we're going to talk, but I'll be taking the opportunities to dig in and expound on different aspects of drive and motive. In this episode today, which is actually episode 33, I want to flip your paradigm on change and our efforts to become a different person. And what's the punchline? I don't think we want to inherently change and be different people. The prospect of that is actually kind of offensive, isn't it? But after a lifetime in personal development, I'll tell you what I believe we do want, what I experience that I want and other people want. Hey, if you enjoy this podcast, I do host two other podcasts. The True Life podcast is focused on getting you fully functioning so you aren't held back by your body and mind. Join me and my co-host, Randy James, medical doctor and functional medicine expert, as we guide you to being at your full capacity. The Ziglar Show is aimed at inspiring your true performance in your personal and professional life. Join me there as I bring on superstar guests, and I co-host a weekly Q&A show with Zig Ziglar's son and Ziglar CEO, Tom Ziglar. Find all three shows. Just search for Kevin Miller in Apple Podcast or visit my website at kevinmiller.co. So, do you want to change, or do you just wish you were deemed okay as you are? Think about that. Listen to that again. Do you want to change, or do you just really wish that you were okay as you are? I mean, I've made a living in personal development, self-help, and health and wellness in these industries for most of my life. And what I feel keeps the wheels turning in this multi-billion-dollar industry is people striving for change. But what if the hidden Achilles heel is people don't really want to change, not in and of themselves inherently. They mostly want to be loved and accepted and be doing okay as we are right now. But when we don't feel okay, we're not getting the results we want, we don't feel loved and accepted, then we seek to change ourselves, right? To be like, well, somebody who is succeeding and loved and accepted. Thus, it's really just kind of a necessary evil. Well, that's just not motivating. That doesn't really get us inspired for change. It's just a chore. So let's dig into this. The basic definition of change is simply the act of becoming different. To take that truly captive, however, again, by proxy, requires one to, in essence, deem that who we are now is not okay, not enough. So here you are now, and you need to become different. It doesn't seem very affirming or gracious or loving now, does it? It doesn't feel good. Yet this is really the perspective that I think finds most of us, flocking to listen to podcasts and read books and blogs and attend conferences and hire coaches. It's an effort to change, to think that we need to change who we inherently are. I didn't ask to become who I am today, especially as you grow through childhood into your young adulthood. So much of what shaped me then, especially, was not my choosing. Today, I sure feel like I'm making a good effort and trying to do the right thing. And yet I must strive to be different, right? Change, as what I am is not enough. It isn't right. Well, I think there's a fatal flaw again in this initiative, and I'm concerned it's what keeps so much of us striving and aspiring and taking two steps forward towards change, but really then taking two steps backwards because we just want to be okay as we are. So let's look at this aspect of change. Let's take it to task, actually, being different. Let's take the focus off of us as complete human beings. I think that's the flaw. The goal is not to completely change who you are and to have you come out of the other side as someone totally unrecognizable to all who ever knew you before. I mean, you've seen the shows and the extreme makeovers, right? Or massive weight loss and, body shaping that can render some people to a degree physically unrecognizable. They really look like different people, but their personality is still intact. And we can take someone from extreme poverty to millionaire status and radically change their stature and place in the world, their environment. But the core person is still there. And I don't think that's a bad thing. They have the same memories and propensities. You're not going to take those away. They retain their sense of humor or hurts or abilities and fears. I mean, the person is still there, right? Even if we've upgraded some things. So it's not the whole of us that we are endeavoring to change. I think that's what we need to break the perspective of. But it is our habits and behaviors and consequently the results and perceived realities of our lives that we want to change. So change is not necessarily focused on who you are, but how you are. You hear that? Not who you are. You're not changing completely who you are, but how you are. You're not looking to change your very essence, but to varying degrees to change just how you behave to some degrees and act to some degrees and the results that you get from such thing. This is like Zig Ziglar in my Ziglar show saying nobody is born a great salesperson. They may have some outgoing propensities that help them in the endeavor, but nobody just comes in and knows how to listen to somebody well, how to relate to them well, how to understand objections, how to really serve the person well in what moral and ethical sales actually is. He says, you have to learn that. And he was one of the greatest students ever. And he started off terrible and became exemplary. But everybody likes to look and go, oh, it's just a natural. Anytime you hear somebody say that you're a natural or somebody's a natural or they're a natural, I think it's a lie. They may have a propensity. The only way they're actually going to be great is to hone that propensity. And we'll talk about that more later. So I see a culture today clamoring to just be loved for who they are and rebelling somewhat, even unconsciously, against this need for change. Can you just please love me in my unmodified, raw, natural form? I think that's a cry that's going out. And the answer, though, that I'm going to explain is yes, you can be loved unconditionally by some people who are willing to do so, but they may not like you. They actually won't like you unconditionally. And nobody else is going to unless you're going to greatly suffer from that perspective if you don't fully understand it. So as a father, which is often my muse of understanding humanity, as a father, I think of my children, they never, ever are going to lose my love. They deserve it. It's my responsibility. And it's also just inherently in me. I just cannot imagine not loving them. They have my unconditional love. Again, I can't imagine not. But at times, they exhibit poor behavior. And in that moment, I may not like them. And I'm supposed to say, no, I don't like their behavior. Okay, fine. But as they are behaving that way, I'm just fine saying, hey, I love you. But right now, I really just don't like you. Don't like who you're being. And I'm also okay with being on the receiving end of this when I behave poorly. I mean, as a matter of fact, part of my personal story is spending way too much of my life trying to be liked by anyone and everyone due to an errant desire for love and affirmation and approval and fear I'd lose relationship if I'm not liked. And it's flat out impossible and unhealthy to live life trying to always be liked. And I know this acutely well. But the measure of true love is being unlikable and acting in unlikable ways and still being loved. Okay. That's your tight relationships. That's the people who really do love you. And that's awesome. But out in the great big world, no, actually, but still right in there, even the people who love you, there are going to be times when they do not like you. And that is up to you and your behavior. And out in the great big world, that is what's going to leave. You don't command people's love. It is, you can argue whether it's a responsibility to love you unconditionally, but do you love everyone out there unconditionally? I mean, you're going to live and die out in the world on people liking you, your employers, your customers, your coworkers, investors, and your teachers, and so on and so on. Your close relationships of love may be, and I'm making this up, I don't know, but as I thought about it, I said 5% or less of all your relationships. And the others are going to be primarily based on like. So you're going to have some people who will love you unconditionally, right? But they're not going to like you all the time based on your behavior and actions. And then out here, you're going to have most people who are going to base their relationship completely on your behavior and actions and whether they like you. And that's what you have control of and you have responsibility of. And again, if you hear this and think, no, we're all supposed to have unconditional love, especially from a faith-based standpoint. Do you unconditionally love everyone out there and like them too? I'm going to question that. So to those longing to just be loved and accepted by everyone for who they are, I'd say, you know what? You can have some who may love you no matter what. As for everyone else, if you are behaving selfishly and uncaringly and are totally raw and unmodified, others will not like your behavior and will not choose to hire you, date you, work for you, spend much of any time with you, or ultimately stay with you. So again, we're back to this thing of change. So do you change who you are? No, but you may need to change how you are in some areas. So let's think on the aspect of potential. We often relate the sentiment of potential to children and young adults, right? They have so much potential when we see maybe a knack for something, a natural ability, a talent, a gift, whatever, something comes easy to them. And in truth, this is all of us. And while I don't believe we all have equal amounts of the same kinds of potential, my experience and my faith shows me that we have dramatic, if not equal potential within us. But potential within is totally irrelevant. It's only what we can get out of us that matters. The absolute, naturally, inherently best athletes and artists are easy muses. So to take them, the best ones that exist will probably never know because they couldn't get their act together enough to bring something to market. So the glory goes to maybe the lesser talents who at least showed up and, as Seth Godin talked about, delivered their art. Again, it's who they are, great, but how they are matters. Imagine a promising young athlete saying, hey, I'm doing pretty well already, right here at a young age, right out of the gun. Can I just have a berth on the Olympic team in my unmodified, raw, and natural form? Can I just be enough just as I am? To which we'd all agree the answers are resounding, well, no. The potential's got to be honed and refined to its greatest extent. While we can appreciate the natural talent of the athlete, it's only in a highly refined state that they would realize a high enough capability to earn a spot on an Olympic team. Yet here we all are in our lives, and we don't live like Olympic athletes training ourselves to be masters at anything. We just want to be okay as is. But yeah, you take that athlete right there and you're not saying, no, you're going to be an Olympic team. You've got to change, become a different person. No, we're saying you're awesome, but we're going to keep working on how you are and what you're doing to make you qualified for the success that you desire. And that's what it comes down to. What are the successes we desire? So this analogy really struck me as I was thinking about the concept that I'm bringing to you here. In 2007, make an analogy here. My wife, and at that point, it was 5 children of the 9 we have now. We drove to a spot of land up in Pikes Peak National Forest, 5.5 acres with this big meadow, hundreds of the biggest aspen trees we'd ever seen. And to this date, I've only seen aspens as big in a couple other places. It backed up to a national forest that gave us a backyard, in essence, of thousands of acres freed for us to use. And to us, it embodied some of the most breathtaking creation that the good Lord just had ever bestowed on the planet. And now imagine me buying the land. Think about this. Imagine me buying the land, which we did, packing up our belongings, driving up into the property in our U-Haul and saying to the family, okay, guys, hop out. Here it is. God made this. This is it. It's perfect. We live here now. Set up a table, make your beds. To which my family would no doubt look at me dumbfounded and ask, what about a house, some rooms? And I'd, of course, for the sake of my argument in this topic at hand, say, well, what do you mean? This is it, au naturel. Can't improve on that. Just love it as it is, unmodified and raw. Why do we have to change something? But listen, again, that they don't want the land itself to change and be different. They would, however, like some modifications, some improvements, some additions, a driveway, a house, electricity, running water, a septic system. They love the land, but they don't really like living out in the exposed open, not year round, at least. Well, we will all do ourselves a world of good to stop focusing on the errant objectives of changing who we are. You're awesome. But becoming different people, right? And instead embrace this initiative, though, of improvements, improving how we are, what we do. That's what we're looking at, modifying and improving on our natural state. So in this case, we took our dream land, the glory of God's creation. And while we needn't and couldn't and didn't want to improve the land itself, we did want to add to it, make improvements upon it, modify it with a house and all the accoutrements that make the land more hospitable and enjoyable for living. If I was unmodified and raw, me, Kevin Miller, and just acted out my inherent unmodified nature, thoughts, I would be, I think, quite offensive to a lot of people. Matter of fact, last night, my kids wanted to watch this movie, Chaos Walking. In the movie, kind of a dystopian type thing, on this planet, all the men, their thoughts are projected out loud and somewhat visual, all their thoughts. And I thought the movie was really interesting in that, though it was unrealistic, because I think in reality, it would be such a constant barrage of words and stuff that they couldn't even make the movie around it. It would be absolute. Well, it'd be more than chaos. But it was a really interesting thing as people were trying to shut up their thoughts so they didn't offend somebody or say what they were really thinking and showcase the essence of who they are, which sounds bad. Shouldn't we all just be able to talk out loud? But we know that 80% of our thoughts are negative and junk, and we're trying to change, again, not our absolute essence, but how we are. Change those thoughts and be at peace and those things. But I'm so grateful that I have the intellect, common sense, to modify some of the dumb things that I think, some of the negative, hurtful, life-taking things that just run through my mind, that I'm now more and more every day aware of, that I can look at that thought and go, oh my gosh, that's terrible, and push that off and not act that way. That's all we're talking about. That's not being dishonest. That's being mature and wise, is looking at those thoughts and going, ugh, that's a junky thought. I'm so grateful that I'm mature enough to realize that's a junky thought that came into my head for whatever reason. That's the case for all of us. Again, God forbid if every thought we had about another person were broadcast on our forehead. So it is. And that's the thing, though. People think is that wrong and disingenuous and performing to not be bluntly honest. Man, the stuff, that the junk that gets into our heads, our task is to be aware of it, those things, take them captive, and respond to life in a life-giving way that gives life to us and others. It's called caring for ourselves and others, being tactful, being gracious, being mature, being wise, putting human care before our perspectives. Because even the things that we think that we actually believe, a lot of times we need to take captive and consider. I mean, I think I'm a good guy, but I get frustrated pretty easily with people, too easily. And that's on me. And you bet I believe in modifying and making the effort to listen and care, not just for the other person's benefit, but for my own, because that negative thinking is rotting away my own soul. I'm not looking to die alone with no one who cares for me. You know, I do want people to like me. Now, not at, any cost and at ridiculous measures like I have, but my goodness. So again, is it changing, or is it taking me and saying, become another person? No, but modify, improve on this person. So look, who you are is good. There are so many good things about you. I mean, there has to be. You wouldn't be listening. Nobody listening to this show does not have a lot of great things about them. Good things, at least, but not everything. You're not good at every task in your life and every aspect of relationships. And while great aspects exist in you right now, you have weak areas and so much potential that can be harnessed. Me too. If you want really great relationships and great outcomes in your lives, you will undoubtedly need improvements and modifications, education and understanding and better habits. Nobody's just, again, naturally great and well-adjusted and capable in their raw and unmodified and natural form. So if you want more of what humanity and life has to offer, improve yourself. Change how you are, change your abilities, gain new and different abilities. Like think of it like adding apps to your phone, right? You don't get a new phone every time you want it to do something, you add something to it. It's actually a really good analogy, right? Take that phone, raw form, and you can add so many things. That's us. So take the glory that is you, that is me, and improve on it. Build upon what you have. Again, you can desire unconditional love from your family and maybe some friends and hopefully get that. But if you want them to like you, and if you want love and like from others, it will require many modifications and improvements on anyone's natural state. If you want a job or a promotion or a raise or start your own business, if you want to earn more money, if you want healthy relationships, if you want to be healthy and well, none of these just happen for lucky people. They're earned with effort. You choose what you want and then choose the accompanying effort to achieve it. Though some people, that effort in whatever category is going to be easier than for others. So be it. For those in the culture, again, who fight against improving themselves and want to claim their right to be loved and liked and accepted just as they are, I invite them to come live on my land out in the woods and enjoy it just as it is, all natural, for a good while. They'll enjoy a little bit of the time, but they'll often find themselves cold and hot, wet, hungry, thirsty. And ultimately, I think they'll probably die of exposure up here in the high mountains and the raw environment, and or become food for a bear or a mountain lion. They'll want some improvements. We want improvements in you. You want improvements in me. So here's to you listening. I mean, the glory of you does not need to change and become different. Not the essence of you, the foundation of you necessarily, but based on what you desire from life, your goals, the things that you want for you, how you are and what you are capable of needs to continue to grow and modify and improve. So I hope that sheds some light on that. I think it's an Achilles heel. I think it's a something that we miss. It's not you, but not changing who you are, but how you are. So if you hear that, how do you do that? How do you change how you are? It's just so difficult, folks. In fact, I think it's the hardest task you'll ever encounter. And again, in these industries of personal development, self-help, health and wellness, we primarily miss the root issue and the gravity of what it really takes. Which I'm going to give you a big paradigm shift on in the next episode, not because I have any secret or claim to have discovered something others have not. I'm going to expound on an idea I received recently from an author and present it to you in a way I do believe is fairly revolutionary. We're coming up in episode 34. I'm going to explain that, why it's so hard to change our habits and behavior, and what your primary opportunity to do so is. And again, I'm a messenger. I've been studying this concept for years, or this topic for years, I should say. I've read the best books, I think, on the subject, but it was, again, just recently that this author that I'm digging into made a reference. It gave me really an epiphany. And I don't make promises, as I've finally realized in life how little I can control, but I'll commit to you the info in this upcoming episode. I don't believe you'll forget it, and it will change how you look at changing yourself from this point forward. It'll change your perspective on your ability to improve yourself. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the What Drives You podcast. I'm Kevin Miller. I'm honored to walk with you as we discover and clarify what is driving us, and we become masters of our drives so we can steer ourselves to what we truly want from life. If you got value from the show, please subscribe, leave a review in Apple Podcasts. And if you join my email list at kevinmiller.co, we'll send you a super brief email every week with the headlines and a short description of all the podcast episodes so you can see what you're interested in. So till next time, folks, stay driven.